This is going to be an art advice video about not taking art advice. Now, what do I mean by that, and why should you even listen to me? Well, let me just explain. So firstly, yeah, you want to get better at your art. How do you do that? You go on YouTube, you watch tutorials, and yeah, it is good information. It will help you if you follow it and, you take on board what people are teaching you, providing they are a good teacher. And there's so much content on the internet now which teaches how to draw. It's not hard to find a good quality video that a lot of people have liked, commented on, and it's quite high up in the search engines and easy to find, stuff like that. But the trouble is, what happens when you subscribe to someone's advice? What happens when you follow the prescription? They tell you do this like this, and follow me as I go from A to B and try and emulate what I do. I mean, sure, it can help to a degree to follow someone else's process, but what would you do if in 10 years time someone says, oh, show me your workflow, show me your art process? I mean, you can do that, but it's just going to be an emulation of someone else's process, and perhaps there's a chance that you've missed out the opportunity to develop your own process. So I'm just going to put that point forward, that learning and having that kind of discovery phase where you're figuring it out can not only be useful, but can actually be one of the most fun parts of drawing and creating art in general. So I've basically been working part-time as an artist for the last couple of decades. I'm on a journey to go full-time, and I was just reflecting on this whole idea of being an artist and trying to sustain it over the long term, over decades. And if the goal is to become a professional, if the goal is to be paid to create artwork, you're only going to be able to do that if to some degree you can enjoy at least something about the process. I mean, you might be able to get by just hating it completely. And don't get me wrong, I don't necessarily always love drawing. In fact, a lot of the time I enjoy kind of the last 20% of the process most, and sometimes there's a lot of grind to get up to that point. But just in general, when you do things, when you kind of have this trial and error approach where you're figuring stuff out and you're inventing and you're discovering, I mean, that can be just so much fun. Like, you can watch a video about colour theory, and in the last, 15, 20 years of me looking at YouTube and YouTube videos on art and art tips and advice just to help myself and stuff, like, I must have seen 50 or 100 colour theory tutorials pop up on my For You page, my news feed, and I have watched probably 4 or 5 of them, and you always get a little tidbit of information that I think it's worth dipping into and considering things, even being reminded of stuff that you already know. It does benefit and does help. And I'm not bashing tutorials or the utility of advice and tutorials in general. And of course I'm giving advice, and I think with any advice you just need to take it with a pinch of salt, or try and find the parts of a talk or a piece of advice that you can relate to or that you can apply to your own lives. You don't necessarily have to take everyone's single word on board and completely do what a single person tells you to do. But being an artist and kind of having that creative kind of mind, like, it's more the sort of mind of like an inventor. Like, you're not necessarily someone that just does the mainstream thing that follows the crowd. You've obviously got some kind of passion, or an open mind, open and such, or creative enough such that you want to make things and turn ideas into a reality in some way. And I think you'll probably be the sort of person, if you're anything like me, who actually gets a lot out of figuring stuff out and having those kind of aha type moments, those eureka sort of moments where you just think, oh wow, I just realized there's this technique where if you put little dots together and you put them really close together, it kind of, if you do that and then you start spacing them away, and you can kind of create this gradient effect, aka stippling. If you figure that out for the first time, you feel like a proper badass. You're like, shit, I've figured this amazing thing out. Like, I am good, I am amazing. It's going to give you that kind of little rush, that little dopamine burst or whatever, that you, on your own 2 feet, on your, in your own mind or whatever, you have figured out this cool little technique that, yeah, exists. It's existed for thousands of years, but to you it's new. And not only to use it is it new, but you at least in your little bubble, have invented this whole technique, and that's something to sort of I don't know, be proud of, give yourself a pat on the back for, or just revel in the joy of having discovered that technique yourself. And, you know, whether it's stippling or, you know, like I say with colour theory, you know, learning different colour combinations and being like, oh, you know what, if I create some purple artwork but has little accents of orange or yellow, you know, aka opposites on the colouring wheel, you know, that actually looks quite effective. I might do a little bit more of that. And you figure out what works, and then that becomes your thing, that becomes your process. And there's definitely something to be said about that, because I think everyone wants to be good. There's so much pressure on people generally to just get good quick. You know, the bar, especially when you look at stuff on the internet, is so high. You know, back when I was growing up, kind of pre-internet, when I was a little kid and I wanted to draw characters from cartoons and, you know, like the box art of video games and, you know, whatever it was. That was all you had. You just had a few select products, something that you'd see on the front of a magazine, you know, back in the day when paper was a thing. And that was it. You had that little bit of inspiration, but then it was up to you to sort of go away and sort of reiterate that and work on your own thing based on the things that inspired you. And I worry today that because there is just so much information that people can take in, you know, you can go to the best artist in the world who just so happens to be putting out, say, YouTube content, and you can follow their whole process and you can mimic them and you can become a carbon copy, and maybe you too could be the best artist in the world or second best. But, you know, where's the fun in that? Where's the discovery? Where's the trial and error and the experimentation and putting something of yourself into your artwork and your creations? And I'm not saying you have to be sort of la-di-da abstract and, you know, find your inner shadow and inner light and mix the two and make it into this beautiful arrangement of dancing colours on a canvas, or I don't know, whatever. You can still just draw, you know, a dog, a cat, an orange, an anime character, but think about what you like about different styles and try and put that into your work, and then just have some time to be like, okay, in my case, I draw a lot of anime stuff. I would say, okay, how can I make this not just look like every other anime character? And yeah, you know, maybe I will go away, come up with something which to me is completely original, but which somewhere out there has been done 1,000 times. But at least I will get to put something that I genuinely care about. And I know that I care about it because it came from me, it came from within my mind or my soul or whatever you want to call it. There's just these little personal preferences just injected into whatever I do. And I know that then has significance and meaning, at least to me. And I know that I'm not just going down the route of just focusing on being better and doing the right thing, being perfect. Because I mean, I'm the worst for this. You know, I have an issue with perfectionism. I am a perfectionist. And I think coupled with the fact that I'm naturally not a very good artist, you know, in order for me to create the sort of artwork I want to create, I have to be a perfectionist. I have to take ages and ages to actually make what I consider to be a good piece of art. You know, and I might be the sort of person that's like, well, you know, I'm not naturally very good and I want to be good and I need to be good because, like I say, I'm on a journey to become a full-time professional and I need to keep up in my game, keep up in the standard. But yeah, I am very aware of the fact that if I go on the internet, find someone who's doing a good thing and maybe go a little bit too close to imitating them, then I might run the risk of not finding what I enjoy, and I might just completely bypass what for a lot of people is probably the most enjoyable phase of art there is, which is the whole discovery phase. And so yeah, avoid the discovery phase at your peril. Yeah, get good at something, but then, you know, now what? Okay, you're competent, you're technically competent, and you've managed to figure out how to get from A to B as quick as possible. But, you know, sometimes with life, the end result, the final destination isn't what matters. It is actually the journey getting there. And if you're hating the entire journey on the way, maybe at least it's time to look at what you're doing and, you know, reconsider. Maybe there's a better way to do things. So anyway, I hope you got something out of this video and hope to see you in a future one.